I'd like to bring up the Director of Demand Gen for Spiceworks. Please give a warm round of applause for Nick Bhavsar.
How are you guys doing? Good. All right. It's a good crowd. You guys kind of spread out. It's going to be challenging. We'll make it work. This is good stuff. More folks coming in. As Frank said, I'm Nick Bhavsar. I'm with a company called Spiceworks. We're going to do a highly interactive session here where you guys basically have a focus group of IT pros that we're going to bring out here in a couple minutes. And I can't stress enough, make advantage of this. Take advantage of this moment. It's a great opportunity for you to learn and get in the hearts and minds and wallets of these IT pros. We're going to do a little bit of this is a session, Unplugged is a session that we do about 20 times a year across the globe. We bring IT pros out to different cities and give marketers, business leaders a chance to do a bit of Q&A with the folks that they're able to chat with. So we're going to get started. We're going to do a little session we call True or BS just to get started a little bit. BS is, of course, beautiful sentences. So we're going to jump right in here and get you a chance to learn a little bit more about these IT pros. So Spiceheads in the IT community or in Spiceworks IT community are IT members. And so we have about 5.5 million of those IT pros. And we're going to just do a raise your hand if you think it's true or BS. So Spiceheads spend $300 billion annually on IT products and services. So raise your hand if you think it's true. Okay. See about 40%. Raise your hand if you think it's false. All right, so many more that think it's true. It actually is false, or it's BS. They actually spend about $600 billion. And so the reason we know this, we do an extensive amount of research with these folks to understand what they're buying every year. We do that in a number of different ways, polls, panels, surveys, but we also have some really sophisticated tools that actually scan their networks. Excuse me. So when we see new devices that show up on these networks, we can assess an average selling price on those and calculate how much they're actually spending to grow their networks. And this is incredibly helpful when you're trying to understand what's changing in this constantly changing IT world. All right, next one. True or BS? Spiceheads are more likely to submit a webinar form than a case study. So raise your hand if you think it's true. Be a little harder with lights. Let's see. Okay. About 30%. Raise your hand if it's false. Okay. More trues on this one. Let's see. It is true. So they spend they're twice as likely to fill out a webinar form when they're trying to engage in some marketing collateral than they are in a case study. And we see this oftentimes. And webinars are extremely helpful for them because they want to know the technical nitty-gritty of their products that they're about to check out. And case studies are good, but they, in many times, have a tough time believing the details of that case study because they know you picked, generally the best example that you can. Versus webinars, they can do Q&A, they can have a live conversation in those webinars, and so we see those as much more effective from a marketing perspective. So one more question, and we're going to bring out the panel here. So Spiceheads need to see at least 3 pieces of marketing content before they engage in the sales. So raise your hand if you think that was true. Okay, maybe about 30% of the folks there. Raise your hand if you think it's false. All right, it's about even. Let's see. So it is BS. So it's at least 5 pieces. I think this is an important piece as business leaders for us to think about when you're trying to engage with an IT pro and get them to understand your products and services. It's typical that they're not going to engage on that first piece of marketing collateral that they download. They need to learn about the products and services, engage in a number of different ways, potentially check out a webinar, and learn a little bit more about those products and services before they engage with sales. So at this point, you might be wondering, well, what the heck is Spiceworks, right? So give me a little bit of a chance to describe this a little bit. So we approach the problem of engaging IT pros sort of with the customer in mind first. So one of the things IT pros have a challenge for doing is maintaining their networks, keeping the lights on. So they use a whole suite of applications and tools to do that. In most cases, clients have to spend, or IT pros have to spend between $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on network monitoring software, help desk software, all different kinds of tools. We make those tools available completely for free from us. And it's not a free trial, it's not free for 30 days, it's not some limited functionality, it's full, robust functionality that they no longer have to spend $30,000 a year on. And so you're probably wondering, well, how do you guys make money? Well, we wrap that into a really interesting suite of marketing products. So media products, email, webinars, and we allow you as a vendor and as a partner to engage in the conversations that they're having when they're trying to learn how to resolve and troubleshoot different issues. So that's the first part. The second part is we've built the world's largest community of IT pros. And that's a really cool statement to be able to say, but what it means is there's lots of different vendors that have their own communities. Cisco has their own community, HP has a community, VMware has a community, and they're all robust communities. But the thing that they have is a certain bias towards their own solutions. If you go ask a question about a HP router in a Cisco community, you're going to get a whole bunch of people that are very much Cisco zealots that are going to say you should check out Cisco products. Well, for us, we don't sell anything to the IT pros. There's no bias towards our products because they're free. And we don't sell anything to those IT pros. And what we also do is allow vendors, NEC is a good partner as well, to engage in those conversations in that community in a way that are really helpful for those IT pros. So they're able to ask questions and get, for example, one of the questions that we had just the other day was a question related to VoIP solutions, and other IT pros can say, hey, you should consider these solutions, you should consider these things, and we allow vendors to participate in that conversation as well because we feel like they actually have a really good and vested interest to be able to provide some interesting background about which solutions to consider. The third piece is content. So with this constant changing, evolving environment of IT, to keep up with all of the trends and things that are going on, it's really difficult. And so we create a lot of different content for those IT pros, and we also allow vendors to create amazing content and engage those IT pros on our platform. Fourth one's product information. How many of you guys have used Yelp before? Yelp? Any Yelp users? Yeah, pretty much every time you go to a restaurant, right, you check out the ratings reviews. Who doesn't? You don't want to go to a restaurant and find out it's no good. Well, the same thing's happening in the IT space and in the B2B space. So when an IT pro considers buying a server or a new product, they'll go on in the Spiceworks community as well and write a review or check out reviews of those products and services. And that's tremendously helpful because they're de-risking their purchase before that actually occurs. And now smart vendors are starting to realize this and drive, just like Yelp, restaurants are starting to do this to cater towards those users so they can start to get better reviews and make sure folks are understanding their solutions. Finally, there's a new service that we introduced called IT Concierge Service. So this is a really cool opportunity for partners specifically. And what we've done is one of the challenges that IT pros tell us continually all the time is that they just lack time, right? And so I'll give you an example. We had a recent IT pro that indicated their bosses needed them to open up a new remote satellite office for a sales office in Chicago. Well, he was just mentally going through this checklist. He's got to get servers, he's got to get a phone system, he's got to get all kinds of things integrated for a sales office of about 50 folks out in Chicago. And what we do is we give them an opportunity to call us completely for free again, and we have technical folks that are on standby to basically help them assess what are you going to need to be successful here. And those folks on our team, we call them Spice agents, will actually call and work with different vendors to get quotes, to get, sort of vet out what a good solution will look like, and that's incredibly helpful. Now, what we don't do today is we don't deploy any of those services. So we're not going to come up to Chicago and actually lay down the cables and deploy all of those services. But what we do is we partner with certain vendors as well, certain resellers and partners, and we pass those on as great opportunities, and they're able to do all the services that they do really well. So really cool service there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring out our panel here real quick. So guys, you guys are about back. If you can come out and back, if we can give them a round of applause here, guys. I'm going to introduce these guys real quick and then ask them a couple of questions, but by and large, this is very much a discussion for you guys to ask questions, and it works a lot better if you're asking questions than me. Believe me, you don't want to be out here doing a song and dance for 20 minutes. So first, we've got Anthony Garmont, who's a senior system admin with TMF Health Quality Institute. Anthony, if you could give us a quick background, a little bit about your company, about sort of the size of your network, and how you spend your free time. How about that?
Yeah, I've been in IT since 1998 or so. TMF is a Medicare subcontractor, and in my spare time I do photography.
Cool. That's awesome. All right, next we're going to do, we'll do Kent while you're there. You got it, Kent. Kent's an information systems supervisor just up the road here in Jacksonville Beach. So Kent, if you can do a little bit of a background of what you guys do and size of your network and what do you do for free time?
I've been in IT officially since '97, unofficially since '84. I was always the person that wasn't afraid to push the button. City of Jacksonville Beach, we've got about 350 users, 375 devices on our network. We provide services for the City of Jacksonville Beach, City of Atlantic Beach, City of Neptune Beach, and Ponte Vedra Beach down here. These guys are actually one of our utility customers. Free time, I also do photography. I do like to do nature photography.
Nice. A couple photographers out here. All right. And then we've got Chuck Layton. Chuck's an IT manager with Scorpion Performance. So Chuck, same deal for you.
Okay. Yeah, Scorpion Performance is basically an umbrella company for Scorpion racing products, Scorpion medical, biologic therapies, amniotic therapies, and Anodize Inc. We have 10 servers, about 250 workstations at a 24-acre facility in Ocala. And in my free time, I'm a ham radio operator.
Awesome. Very cool. So in terms of the Q&A, we have a couple of runners out. So what we're going to do is if you can raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll have a runner run out to you. And I'm going to try to queue up a couple of these. So we got one out and back right here. Let's get the mics over there. So go ahead, sir.
Hi, Chris Hodges with Nobel Systems, and this is for Kent. Can you briefly talk about some of the challenges that you have providing Wi-Fi down on the beaches?
Right now, all we provide as far as Wi-Fi is inside of our city facilities. Our city manager has determined that we are not going to compete with local businesses at all. It's a business decision that the city made. So the different ISPs and Wi-Fi providers are free to provide their own out here for whatever cost they want to assess. We've got several businesses that have free Wi-Fi, but like I said, the city itself doesn't provide Wi-Fi access to citizens and visitors.
So the city of Jacksonville is not doing any kind of Facebook promotion, anything from the wide area access points? They're not doing any social media pushing through access points to the public?
No, like I said, the city of Jacksonville Beach, we don't provide any Wi-Fi access. We've got social media presence and everything, but it's through our internal network dealing with the citizens and visitors.
Good deal. And next question. While we're queuing up the next question, so again, just raise your hand and then the microphones will get run out to you. Can you guys walk through just a recent project you had? How do you go about deciding which vendors you use, which ones you don't, and just sort of if you've got any current projects that you're working on?
Well, one of the things that we have to do with the city being a government agency, we've got to have, we either have to find a product off a state contract or we have to have 3 quotes for a product if it's over $1,000. The way I find vendors is through agencies like Spiceworks. I get on the community and look around for vendors. I ask questions of other IT users. I also attend a few conferences every year. I try to build my vendor database so that if I have Project X, I can look in my spreadsheet and say, okay, who sells Project X type products? So I maintain a list of vendors. I get them through several sources, conferences like this. Unfortunately, cold calls. I don't take many cold calls, but those that I do, I say, send me your information and I'll just add you to my list. Don't have anything for you right now, thank you. Unfortunately, we've got 5 of us now that are supporting 350 users, so the tech to user ratio is kind of steep there. So we don't spend a lot of time with vendors unless we go out and seek a vendor. And like I said, we keep a list of vendors available for different products.
Cool. Anthony, you just recently talked about a big project that you just were doing last year.
Yeah, we just recently went through a big FISMA, what's called a FISMA audit, and requires us to, much like him, any vendors that we use, we have to get 3 quotes for, and so we're bound by a lot of compliance type issues. So from our standpoint, vendors, once you kind of, I guess, get your foot in the door, it's much easier to do business with you because, everybody has to sign everybody has to go through legal and, get clearance and stuff like that. So, if it's a project that has to happen quickly, a lot of times we have to refer to those vendors that we already have a relationship with, just because if it has to happen in a month, legal can take that long. So, that's kind of like where we're coming from that standpoint. But that particular audit, we spent about $2 million between services and products.
Okay, cool. Chuck, do you have any other ones that you want to add in?
Our process is a little bit different because we're a privately owned organization, so I make all the decisions as far as vendors are concerned. I think probably the number one way that I look for new vendors is through Spiceworks. I've been part of Spiceworks for about 15 years. And I rarely make a decision on a vendor without getting feedback from other IT professionals, no matter how much I market it to. That's one of the first places I go to check, because it's you get unbiased opinions that way, and that's truly what, in the end, that's what we all want. We want an unbiased opinion. Tell me the truth. That's what I need to know. And when you go to Spiceworks, for that, that they're not biased in any way. What they do is present you with all of the possibilities. The webinars that we attend through Spiceworks are probably, I would say they probably are the number one way that I would make a decision on a vendor. First of all, we get access directly to the people behind the software or the hardware, and we get pointed, direct questions answered that way.
Cool, and just state for the record, we've not paid you to say that real quick, so.
I was not paid to say that.
Just questions out here real quick, so just again, raise your hand, we'll get the mics out to you guys. Let's see if we got some. I think there's one right here. And then if anyone else has one, we can queue up the next question, that way we can keep things going.
Hello. Whoa, am I up?
Go ahead, you're up. I'm going to queue up the next one right here.
Okay. I just was curious. You said you go to Spiceworks before making a decision. Can you give us an example of some of the purchases and projects that you've done where you went to Spiceworks, found a vendor, a company, and purchased?
Yes. I've been in IT for a long time. I fought virtualization for years because I had no confidence in it. Spiceworks had so many different webinars on hyperconvergence and virtualization, and I watched so many of them that they finally convinced me that it was reliable. We set up all of our servers, and our workstations is all hyperconvergence now. That sold me probably going through Spiceworks, listening to the people explain to me how it worked, why it was reliable. That was probably the biggest purchase decision that I made as far as time was concerned. It takes a long time to do that, especially with small staff. That's probably the largest. I would say it was probably the largest purchase that we made as far as, a vendor through Spiceworks that I found.
Cool.
Thank you.
You guys have any others? Or? I think we had one up here, right here. Right up here, yeah.
Where is it? Missing? Oh.
Sorry.
So I was wondering, what kind of communication material is currently available on Spiceworks? Are there other manufacturers involved in it? Is that also where you would go to buy bandwidth and telco services?
Yeah, so let me address this one a little bit first. So it's, they don't actually buy services from us. It's mainly content and marketing that they're actually consuming. So there's a bunch of interactions.
Right, I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. I'm saying, what information's available? I know you're not selling, you're not marketing and stuff like that, but so NEC is a product that's available that you could research through Spiceworks. Are there other products available that way?
Yeah, so we cover the gamut. We have about 1,000 vendors that all do business with us, and that covers everything from hardware solutions to network solutions to unified communications and VoIP to software solutions. And I'll let you guys kind of chime in. What do you primarily find it useful for? What types of products and services do you research?
Like you said, hardware, networking, software. we can go out there and find information on different products, different types of technologies. Once we, like he was saying, you know, he found the hyperconvergence technology. He did some research on Spiceworks, found different companies and different vendors that provided those services, and was able to get with other spice heads and actually get some referrals and find out the good, the bad, and the ugly about how different vendors treat things and how different products react in different situations.
A lot of time for us, a solution kind of starts with a problem, obviously. So for me anyway, that starts with a question on the Spiceworks forums usually. You know, we have to do X, Y, Z. How are you guys doing it? You know, what solutions are you using? You know, what do you like? What do you don't like? And then of course it becomes a more organic conversation after that, where somebody will come in and recommend, you know, this product or that, and then that starts for us some research on our end, whether that be reaching out to a vendor on Spiceworks or just Googling that vendor. But that, I guess, information from people that are already using it and being able to ask them, you know, what do they like about it, what do they not like about it, and then be able to kind of dig in and get specific answers to questions without talking to sales, no offense. But just, you know, because a lot of the requirements for, you know, IT obviously, as you know, is becoming a lot more complicated. So the devil really is in the details. So to be able to post a question and say, hey, we specifically need to do this particular thing with this product, will it do it? And to have somebody say, yeah, it'll do it, but you kind of have to Band-Aid it, or, oh, it definitely does that, no problem. That's a lot of value for us.
Cool. Thanks, Anthony. We got one right here. Any question? Is there anyone else? We can queue up the next one as well. Go ahead.
And this is for any one of you three. So it sounds to me like Spiceworks also has a forum. So let's say you've already purchased a product, or you're about and you have questions or problems like, hey, I can't make this feature work. Do you go to the manufacturer's forum, or do you run it through Spiceworks? Because, you know, obviously, you know, there's different product forums out there that you know, after you've made the purchase, that you can go to.
For me anyway, they can speak on their own, but I like the fact that I can ask a question about any product on Spiceworks, just because, you know, you have enough logins as an IT person to have a login for the Cisco website and the NEC website and the Dell website, and to go onto their forums and do all that. You might get a little bit more specialized information from those forums, but again, it's more about just being able to ask a community, and again, to get answers from them on, you know, maybe I'm trying to do, maybe the product I'm using for that isn't the right product, and somebody could recommend something else. So that's where I find the value, is just to be able to go to a place where it's just everything in one spot.
And how do you feel? Go ahead, Ken. Let me let you go ahead first.
I tend to do a little bit of both. I use the Spiceworks community forums to ask other IT people, but I also use Spiceworks because the manufacturers have presences there a lot of times, and you can contact support people through Spiceworks from the manufacturer. And then, of course, we can always go to the manufacturer's webpage itself. I do a hybrid, a little bit of everything, looking for the best answer for me. A lot of times, you know, no offense to manufacturers, but they don't always have the best answer because they're not using the product. They're telling you how to use it. And sometimes that just doesn't work. And sometimes talking with other spice heads, they've made it work for them in their environment, and they've made it work doing what you want it to do. And a lot of times that's better information, really.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken says. I rarely go back to the manufacturer anymore, even for support, oddly enough. Microsoft is a perfect example of that. See, I didn't have to say anything more than Microsoft is a perfect example, and you know exactly what I mean, because even people at home have dealt with it. I can go to Spiceworks, and they have representatives for each company that if there's a vendor there for NEC, if NEC has a presence on Spiceworks, then there's a contact for NEC, and I can usually get a faster, more direct answer from them than I can from a support person. And it's helpful that it's not, I don't want to say this, it's not a sales pitch. They're not trying to convince me to use their product. they're telling me the truth. And that's really what we need, because in situations, especially with these two here, they have actually larger networks than I have. We don't have time for that. We don't have time to be sold on something that really isn't specific to what we need. So we get a lot more straightforward answers, I think, by going on Spiceworks, and I think that's why it's grown like it has. It's for that very reason. The webinars are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. I have gleaned more information from webinars probably in the last 5 years than I learned the first 10 years in IT.
That's good stuff. Chuck is referring to what we call a green guy. So in our community, we have IT pros, obviously, that can participate for asking all kinds of questions, but we also allow vendors to participate. So Brian is the representative for NEC, and it's really cool because just like Chuck was mentioning, if you go onto a Microsoft forum and ask questions, you're not going to have a VMware person that's even allowed to sort of interact in that environment, but yet that VMware person might actually have some things that you need to consider. And as a competitor, they're often not allowed in that situation. But what we allow is sort of this, we kind of joke that we're Switzerland. Everything's neutral, right? And we allow all the vendors to participate there because they're going to share and sort of point out things that you might not get if you're in a biased sort of environment. So next questions. Let's see. What do we got? Where is it? Oh, there you go, out in the back.
Good morning, Chris Steinkraus with Matrix Communications. So you guys have talked about how you've leveraged the Spiceworks community and also product review, but I would like to know if you guys use any of the applications like their help desk or managed service solutions to do your business. And if you have, how's that experience been?
I only use the inventory portion of Spiceworks right now at this point, only because there was something else in place when I started there. But I know that these two guys have better answers for that.
Yeah, I've been using the Spiceworks help desk for almost 5 years now. When I got into my new position there in Jacksonville Beach, we had 3 help desk type products. 2 of them were paid products and 1 of them wasn't. It didn't take me too long to figure out which one I needed to evaluate first. It turned out to be the best solution for us at the time, and it still is. I do use some other monitoring software, but we're heavily invested in Spiceworks. We use the help desk, we use the inventory, we do network scanning with Spiceworks. I like that we can go in there and look in our inventory and call up a computer or a switch or a router, and we can actually click on it, find out who made it, and click right from there and go to a help desk or a help forum right there in Spiceworks. So Spiceworks really does a lot for us, and we get a lot of information from it. So it's real handy.
We don't really use any of the products from Spiceworks from a software standpoint, just because of compliance reasons and things like that. It's kind of difficult to get things approved, so we really just use the forums.
Yeah, and we see this often. We see, we've got a whole suite of products, and some folks use the network monitoring tools, some folks use the community, some folks use a help desk, and we sort of are putting out as many different types of products. But I think the key for us is always that's where the engagement is. It's really hard to get these folks time, and what we find is you put good tools out there that they use. Not everybody uses every product, but they use the ones that they need, and we continually optimize around that. So, good question. Next one, we haven't had one on this side of the room, but we got one right here up front as well. This side of the room, I'm looking at you kind of funny. Right up here.
Hi, Sean, General Telecom. First of all, you had mentioned that you had 5 technicians serving 350 users. So not to make you guys jealous, but in the communications side of the world, 5 technicians, at least in my world, would service 500 plus customer sites. So now I'm afraid to get into the IT. No, I'm kidding. I do use Spiceworks, and so this might be a question that's sort of directed to NEC, but maybe you can help me in a general sense. When we do the inventory, it doesn't find a lot of information on the NEC servers and phones, and so therefore the usefulness of it is sort of limited because there's just not that much, right? Is there anything you've been able to do to kind of enhance or dig out more information that makes the scanning more useful in that case?
Yeah, so I can speak on behalf of Spiceworks. So that's one of the things that, as you can imagine, there's so many different hardware devices, so many different just software devices. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get the scanning technology right. It's a continued area of investment for us. So what I would encourage you to do is just download the latest version and sort of see where you're at there. But I don't know if you guys have seen other things that have worked from an inventory scanning perspective.
Over time, we've had several different types of devices that they have problems. They can identify it, they can detect that it's there, but really all you get is maybe a device type and an IP address. We found that we implemented SNMP, the Network Management Protocol, on several of our devices and add that information into Spiceworks, and that increased the capability to get information about devices. A lot of times Windows WMI prevents access, so if you're having devices that don't pick up information, those are two areas to at least start with.
Okay. Yeah. Feel free to swing by the booth and I can help put you in touch with somebody on Spiceworks that can help as well. So next question, and one that I have for you guys is, could you describe sort of how do you weigh out when you purchase something direct from a vendor or through a reseller partner? Like, what is your thought process there? Are you allowed to, and maybe in your scenarios you're not, I'm not sure.
Well, for my situation, I typically buy a direct from the vendor. But usually what I do is I go to Spiceworks first and I talk to whoever their representative is. We've had, or I've had situations where I've actually been, and this is an interesting thing that I think with a lot of IT people will win loyalty. And one of those things is that I had one organization actually recommend another organization for me to purchase products through. And that meant a lot to me because I knew they were giving up a sale, but they won my loyalty. And now when I have to make a recommendation, that's the first company I recommend.
Cool.
Yeah, I go direct with manufacturers and I deal with resellers both. And I'm a consumer. I will play them against each other. I am there, like I said, I work for a government agency. I'm there for the best price that I can get. If you can give me a price off state contract, great. If you can give me a price better than state contract, I'm going with you whether you're a reseller or a manufacturer. I've got some products that I buy routinely direct from the manufacturer. I've got some products from that same manufacturer that I buy from a reseller because I can get a better price from the reseller. So once I identify a product that I want to buy, I want to buy company X's product A. I'll go to the company and I'll go to different resellers and say, okay, what can you give me as far as pricing for product A? And I'll go with the best price I can find. I'm here for the biggest bang for my buck.
We're pretty similar. It kind of depends on the product, though. As a for instance, with some Cisco switchgear that we purchased recently, we dealt directly with the manufacturer, but they also, I don't know if Cisco directly has people that will install equipment for you or not, but basically they got us in touch with different vendors that would, perform project work for us, and then we can kind of bring them under our wing and have them help us with projects. But yeah, it's definitely, it depends on the situation, but some, like for desktop machines, sometimes it's cheaper to go with a reseller. Sometimes with servers, it's better to go with the manufacturer, so it just kind of depends.
Cool. Next questions? Got one back here.
We've been talking a lot about products, but what about services? How do you go about acquiring services, or is that something you do on a regular basis through that product?
That's a question about services.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for us, we have very specific requirements for vendors and things like that. So a lot of the stuff that we do, we don't have like specific people that have that expertise on board. So that's part of the process of purchasing is trying to find that expertise. And I would say once we do find somebody that we're happy with, we tend to stick with them, and as long as they make us happy, the next project that comes along, they're usually like our first call. Sometimes though, they can't compete on price, and we have to use somebody else because, again, if we have somebody that has a lower price, even though we like a different vendor, as a government contractor, we're not necessarily have that leeway to pick somebody in some situations. So that's kind of how it works for us.
If we're getting a product through a reseller, a lot of times they'll package services, professional services, along with the product, along with the quote. If we're getting direct from the manufacturer and we need to request other assistance in installation or data migration or whatever, our city manager has expressed a preference to get businesses local to Jacksonville Beach. So we look around within the city limits and see if we can find somebody. We talk to other people on SpiceWorks. We talk to IT user groups here in town. There's several that are very active. We try to find people who can provide those professional services within Jacksonville Beach. If not, then we take our search a little bit farther out until we can find somebody that is reputable. And again, reputation a lot of times can be verified through other Spice heads or other IT professionals. Word of mouth, it's huge. I just can't say that enough.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken said. As everybody knows, it takes a long time to build a good business and a real short time to run it. Word of mouth is definitely number one. SpiceWorks also has I don't know what you would call it, but they call it Spice Corps. And they, in certain areas, they have groups of Spice heads that will meet once a month. That is usually where I find service providers. I'm kind of big on trying to, like he said, I'm from Ocala, which is about 2.5 hours west of here. And I try to keep as much IT services, my needs, I try to fulfill right there in Ocala if I can, and then I'll go out from there as far as maybe Orlando. But the Spice Corps is really good for that because you get to interact again with other IT professionals who probably hired the same kind of people, and again, word of mouth.
Right. Chuck's referring to a program that we call Spice Corps. It's essentially regional meetups, and so they can be as small as 5 to 10 people or as big as we've had ones up at 75 people, and it's really cool. We allow vendors to participate as well, and it could be just buying pizza or something along those lines, but it's a really cool way to have regional programs that we allow folks to engage with. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap up here pretty quickly. So one right here. Here we go.
Got a couple quick questions for you. So the content that you receive from vendors, manufacturers, white papers, case studies, things of that nature, how do you absorb that information? How do you use it to make decisions? That's the first question. The second question is, what are the things that kind of concern you and keep you up at night from an IT standpoint? And what are the things that you're most excited about?
3-pronged question. So how do you consume marketing content? Let's break it down. We'll do that one first. How do you consume marketing content? What engages you?
Webinars.
Okay.
Webinars.
I think Chuck likes webinars.
Yeah,
Kids.
I love that. And I tell you why. First of all, they tend to hold these webinars between 11 and 1 p.m. every day. It's perfect. It hits lunchtime. I know many IT managers that will sit there and eat lunch at their desk and attend a webinar, and I'm one of them. And I learn a lot through that process, probably more so than any other area in SpiceWorks.
Good stuff. Kent, how do you consume marketing content?
Yeah, I've gone through some webinar processes. Believe it or not, even though I'm an IT person, I do take a lot of printed material home. I find that a lot of times that I could sit around watching a ball game or a hockey game or something on TV and read through a white paper without worrying about the phone going off, email dinging and chiming, nobody beating on my door saying, hey, my computer's broken, it's the most important problem in the world right now, no matter what you think. So I do take stuff home, and I do it both printed and electronically. I go through white papers, case studies, that kind of stuff, just to find out how other people are using products.
Right. And Ken, what type of material? Is it more technical, less technical? What do you prefer?
A lot of times I go for the the 3,000-foot view.
Okay.
Not the 25,000, not the 3-foot view, just kind of a mid-level view.
Yeah.
If I have a little more interest in something, then I'll get with my technicians and my engineers and say, okay, let's take a look at this and see how we can leverage it to our needs.
Cool.
I think from a marketing standpoint, anything that makes me laugh grabs my attention. But as far as what I consume, things I look for a lot are, just as a for instance, I recently read an article that Cisco did on their UCS infrastructure, and it was basically like a case study that they did for VDI. And they literally built from start to finish a VDI infrastructure on their equipment. And it went step by step. This is what we use, this is how many desktops. And to be able to see kind of practically how that comes together and all the pieces it needs, just to give you an idea of what you're looking at, I think is pretty valuable. And it's kind of almost a head start. So, you know, when you do make those phone calls to vendors and stuff like that, you have a little bit more intelligence about what you're looking for, because a lot of times you don't want to ask the salesman, you know, hey, what do I need to do this particular project? Because, you know, they might be throwing things in there that you might not necessarily need. So to be able to see the actual manufacturer come in and say, hey, we set this up, it's working, you know, it has this performance capability, it's for this amount of users. You know, if it's for 400 people in that particular example, and you're doing 1,200 people, I mean, obviously you can do the math and kind of figure out what you're going to need. So I think those types of white papers are pretty valuable.
Cool. And then I think the second part of the question was, what keeps you up at night? What's the one thing where you get back to your inbox right now and you're like, boy, I hope that doesn't blow up?
Storage.
All right.
Managing storage.
I'd have to agree with storage, because with our storage, we run all of our virtual servers, obviously emails stored. So if storage ain't there, if storage goes away, we're in hurting status.
And Kent, are you guys on-prem, or are you cloud, or?
We've got on-prem and what I like to tell my people is a private cloud.
Okay.
We've got an off-site disaster recovery location with a complete duplicate set of our equipment that's replicated back and forth near real time. And a lot of my users have a hard time understanding what the cloud really is. They're not technical people. They're finance people. They're planners and developers and permitting and city clerk and stuff. So they don't really understand what the cloud is. And I've looked at them and said, okay, you get email every day, right? Well, yeah. Have you ever seen the email server? Well, I connect to it every day. Okay, where is it? Okay, that server is over here 3 blocks away, and we've got a duplicate set of servers 15 miles away. What you're really accessing is our private cloud. And it opens their eyes, and it makes them understand a little bit more about what the cloud really is.
Cool.
I would say there's two things that really concern me the most, that keep me up a lot. One is storage, obviously, and the other would be security. Security is probably top for me. Cloud, I use Office 365 with Microsoft. Can't say enough about that. That's one up for Microsoft. Works well. I think the hardest selling point, particularly with when you're trying to present to a CFO or a CEO, is convincing them that the cloud is secure. That seems to be the hardest or the biggest hurdle that I have to overcome with them.
Okay. And then we were talking about this actually just before we got in here. When you guys look forward, what excites you about IT right now? Chuck, you were mentioning you.
I just wish I was 30 years younger. Man, what they're going to get to see. I have interns from the University of Florida that work with me, and the first thing I make them do the first day they start is sign up for SpiceWorks. But it's just, I think the future is just unlimited, and I really wish I was going to still be in IT 30 years from now to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Along the same lines for me, what excites me about the IT field itself is the fact that it's growing exponentially. If you look at what we were doing 20 years ago and what we're doing now. 20 years ago, you had no even idea or thought that you'd be able to do what we can do now with technology. You go back even 40 years, and it's even more mesmerizing. You go back to 1950, and who'd have thought in 1950 we'd have been putting men on the moon in 1969? And then you stop and think that all the computing systems they use to put men on the moon, you now walk around in your pocket or on your hip or on your belt with more computing power than we put men on the moon with.
Yeah.
It's staggering, the exponential expansion of IT and technology. We actually have absolutely no idea where we're going to be in 20 years. My bosses and C-levels keep asking me, well, where are we going to be in 5 or 10 years? And it's hard to explain that we don't know, because the technology is moving so rapidly, and what may be just an idea in somebody's head today will be worldwide technology in 3 years. There's no way to explain that. It's that kind of growth that excites me about technology.
Right. Cool. Anthony, take us home here. What excites you?
I think just mainly the fact that nowadays, if you're a sysadmin, you really have to know everything. And it's become, it's almost even getting into development now with scripting and things like that. So just the fact that, there's just so much out there to learn, and it's a different thing every day.
Good deal. Well, we'll wrap up here. I had one last slide if we can get this up. But if you'd like to learn more a little bit about Spiceworks, come chat with us. Come by the booth. We're doing a breakout session as well at 2:30 today, and then another one at 8:30. And then we also host an annual conference. We were just talking about this with these guys at Spice World. We have about 1,500 IT pros from around the world that come out in Austin in early November, and we invite all you guys out to come out as well. It's a ton of fun just to meet the folks and meet the vendors and all kinds of different folks. But quick round of applause for these guys. They've been really gracious with their time. So.